Okay, so today we are doing part 2 of my Avatar Book 3 Season 3 discussion. I had to break this up into 2 videos because I had too much to discuss. If you missed the first one, linked in the description. Nope, linked in the corner in the description. We left off the last video at the prison episodes, so that's where we're picking up. Zuko and Sokka, well, Zuko's just going through his list of people to try to help. Zuko and Sokka go in and infiltrate the prison, the fire prison, to try to break Sokka's dad out. Once again, plans fail. Once again, I'm so impressed that this series is not afraid to make these characters' plans fail. I just expect it's a kid's show. It's a Nickelodeon cartoon. I just expect maybe a 1/10 of the depth that I get from it. They go to break Sokka's dad out. Not only is his dad not there, but they are able to find Suki at least, which is fantastic because I love Sokka and Suki together. They find Suki. They figure out this plan to break her out and get everybody out. At least they accomplish something, but then find out maybe dad is coming. They give up their plan and they sacrifice everything. They sacrifice the success of their plan. They sacrifice their way out. They sacrifice potentially their lives in order to maybe find Sokka's dad. And honestly, at this point, with how many times things have gone wrong, I wasn't sure if he was gonna be there or if it was all gonna be for nothing. But he was. He got off of the trolley thingy. What are those called? He got off the thing and he was in prison. And Sokka and his dad got to have a nice little reunion, a little bit better than Sokka and Suki's attempt at a reunion. And they all team up to figure out a way out. It doesn't go quite as planned, but it does work. And they end up, after a whole lot of shenanigans, I loved these episodes, they end up capturing the prison guy and using him as a hostage to get their way out on a gondola. That's what they're called, gondolas. But I forgot to mention, at one point, May comes back because her uncle is running the prison. And she's a little bit mad because Zuko broke up with her over a note and abandoned her. And turns out their relationship was solid enough that this really, really hurt. And once again, Zuko has to betray her in order to be a part of Team Avatar. He locks her in a room and he breaks her heart again. And then they capture May's uncle and make off in the gondola. And Azula shows up, and Azula and Ty Lee face off against them. Loved that very short little fight scene on top of the gondolas. They decide to cut the wire. Actually, the guy, the prison warden, is the one that gets his mouth free and shouts, "Cut the wire," because, as he said before, I would rather be dropped into the boiling lake than let some prisoners escape off of my prison island. And so that's what he says. He says, "Cut the wires, kill us all together." So they start cutting the wires. So Azula and Ty Lee leave, and that's going to be an easy defeat. So May surprised me. May turned on everyone. She turned on all the people that are cutting wires. She pinned them down with her many, many, many star throwy thingies. And then when Azula and Ty Lee meet up with her, she betrays Azula too. And when it looks like Azula is gonna fight back, Ty Lee betrays her too. Man, that was such an intense scene. First of all, when May said, "You underestimated the fact that my love for Zuko is stronger than my fear of you." Wow. And then, I don't know. I know that May and Ty Lee are kind of just in it to be a part of the girl gang, and just because why not? Neither one of them are, psychotic like Azula is, but I didn't expect them both to betray her. And then her unraveling, I'm getting ahead of myself, her unraveling from that moment forward after the two people closest to her, the two people that she's fought alongside, that she grew up with, that she trusted more than anyone else in the world. After they betrayed her, she trusted no one. She started exiling everyone. She cleaned out her entire palace staff. She was convinced that if they couldn't be trusted, no one can. No one will ever be loyal to me again, because her need to be accepted and loved ran so deep and so strong that that betrayal unwound her, and she was seeing visions of her mom, who she admitted earlier in the season considered her a monster, and it did hurt. She may have played it off as, well, it was true, but it still hurt. But that clearly was significant to her, because she didn't even have the love that she needed from her mom, because her mom saw her that way. And now she felt like she got that unconditional love from these two girls, and they betrayed her too. And it just messed her up. Okay, I got way ahead of myself, but now that I'm off track, let's talk about Iroh for a minute too, because I missed him in this season. I missed him so much. I love Iroh's character, as you know, and I was excited to see more of him in this season, and he barely exists in it. But that said, despite my missing him, I loved this choice that they made, because we needed Iroh to step aside in order for Zuko to have the arc he had. We needed Zuko to learn to stand up on his own and to have an arc on his own 2 feet, and not constantly leaning on Iroh for all of his character growth. Iroh was still with Zuko the entire time, still an influence to Zuko the entire time, but he wasn't standing by him, constantly counseling him. Finally, Zuko had to decide to listen, but to do everything himself as far as his arc goes. And I was sad and I missed Iroh, but I'm so glad that that's the decision that they made, because it made Zuko's arc worth that much more. And while we're on the subject of Iroh and bouncing all around this season, I also want to mention the scene where Zuko and Iroh come together at the end, and Zuko is so regretful and can't believe his uncle could possibly forgive him. And Iroh says, "I wasn't angry. I was sad because I thought you had lost your way." This scene had me in tears. It was one of the best scenes of the season. Now let's get back on track, and we'll get back on track by talking about a really funny scene. I loved, after the prison break and everybody was back at camp and everybody was back together, that scene when Suki was trying to sneak into Sokka's tent and she bumped into Zuko, and Suki is now terrified and backtracking, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to be here. Oops, excuse me," not terrified, embarrassed. And Zuko, completely calm, not picking up on any social cues. He's just like, "Oh, did you need to talk to Sokka too?" And Suki's like, nope, definitely don't need to. And then Zuko walks into the tent, and Sokka wasn't waiting for Zuko. All right, now let's talk about the scene where Zuko decides to help Katara. So there are a lot of scenes in this season that made me tear up, got me emotional, really hit me hard, and impressed me. There's one scene that made me sob. So Zuko and Katara go to hunt down Katara's mother's murderer. And this is an interesting scene or episode for Zuko, because Zuko is still not whole yet, and he's leaning into the darker side of him here. Katara needs her revenge. She has to seek this out, and I'm gonna help her do it. And if she needs to murder this guy, then oh well, that's what she needs to do. And this is wrong, right? But he thinks he's doing good. He thinks he's helping her. And this is the episode where we get to see Katara really, really go dark. And I loved this episode because I don't know how much you guys watch my videos. If you're only here for the Avatar stuff, you've likely not heard me talk about Wuthering Heights, which is a classic. I love Wuthering Heights because it shows the cycle of abuse. It shows specifically one character who grew up in a very abusive home, hating the man that treated him so badly. And then through his life, we see him becoming that man because he harbored so much hatred and resentment that he became the man that he stewed on and focused on so much. He harbored this hatred toward him, but he became him. This show illustrates that so well. Sokka, who also mourns his mom, who also is hurting over everything that happened to him, he he was able to move forward. He was able to be in pain and still miss her, but to let go. Katara couldn't, and she went dark because of that. Seeking out her revenge made her go down a really dark path, and she nearly did it. She nearly did kill this man, but she wasn't able to. It's easy to look at that scene and say, this guy deserved it. He was a Nazi who was killing people, who was being a part of the genocide that was happening. Of course he deserves death, but at what cost? At what cost of the person who's executing this revenge, the person that's executing this justice? At what cost to her? And Katara chose not to take that cost. She chose not to be the one that wields justice for the sake of herself, for the sake of letting go and letting herself heal, instead of trying to find healing through something that will only damage her further. And that scene made me sob, because it's very personal to me, which I've talked about Wuthering Heights, and I've talked about why all this means so much to me in other videos, so I'm gonna leave it because that's not what this video is about. But it was a really powerful scene to me, because I love that she made that choice and that she had that growth, that she was able to see, this is not going to find me freedom, and she chose to let go instead, and that is the only freedom that she could have found. Again, this show explores such deep concepts in a much better way than I've seen these concepts explored in other places. Also, oh my goodness, in that scene, we got to find out why Katara holds so much rage. And no wonder her mother died protecting her. I probably should have put 2 and 2 together before that moment, but I didn't. She was protecting the only waterbender left in the tribe, Katara. And no wonder Katara holds so much rage and pain over that. She feels responsible for it. And that sucks. Now let's get into those final episodes. So we have Aang, who disappears, ends up on an island, and he's trying to summon all the different avatars to seek advice because he doesn't believe that he should have to kill Fire Lord Ozai in order to win this war. And every past self that he talks to, they pretty much all tell him, man, sometimes you just gotta do it. And honestly, I didn't know how they were going to do this, because me as the viewer, I'm thinking, all right, how are you gonna do that? Like, you've spent so much time on this phenomenal Zuko arc. I'm not gonna believe if you do a sloppy little arc with Ozai and suddenly he's all better now. Or, you know, Aang has a heartfelt conversation with him at the climax of the battle and, okay, he'll try being good. Like, I'm not gonna believe that. So how are you going to keep this part of Aang where he's convinced that he doesn't want to kill and yet still have a good last battle? And I didn't know. I didn't have any idea. That last battle between Aang and Ozai, I think I'm saying his name right, between those two was phenomenal, because at this point, Aang has been learning firebending, and maybe he's not a master at all, but man, is he good. So the battle between them was fantastic, and seeing Aang use all the elements to fight against this firebender who is probably better than him was so great to watch. But then having that mixed with Zuko and Azula facing off. And Zuko even says, after Iroh has his long monologue of, you gotta do this, but you can't do it alone. And Zuko says, yeah, okay, you're right, I can't do it alone. I need Katara. And then he brings Katara only to say, I'm doing this alone. And so Zuko and Azula face off. And so the battle between Aang and Ozai, mixed with bouncing back and forth between the battle between Zuko and Azula, was not only phenomenal, but also made it so neither of the battles felt stale. And also just the music score of this entire last episode was untouchable. Just everything is great. Again, the battle scenes, watching the bending happen, perfect. Again, they tricked me. Again, it looked like I knew where things were going, at least with Zuko and Azula, but no, Azula turns her lightning on Katara. Zuko takes it and takes the hit, and then he's down. So now it's Azula and Katara. Turns out Zuko did need Katara. And then they face off. And again, I didn't see it coming. I thought I knew how it was gonna go, and I was wrong. I loved the battle between them, but what I really loved was how Katara won. This is what I'm talking about with this magic in this world. I think I know how it works. You give me boundaries, you give me lines, and it all makes sense, and then you break them, but you break them within the rules you've created. And so you're giving me new bounds and new abilities that I didn't know were possible, but you do it in a way that works within this world. And I love it. So when she encases them both in water and freezes them both, but then Katara is able to unfreeze herself, and she takes those chains and she binds Azula and she brings her down so that she's chained up, and then she breaks the water, and now Azula has this moment. And I love that Azula, she stays evil, right? She doesn't have a redemption arc because we don't need to redeem every single bad character that's ever lived. And I love that messaging too. I love that they don't just, and you get a redemption, and you get a redemption. They make it more real than that. So Azula is broken now, completely shattered. And that scene of her chained and losing it was so hard, but so good. Then let's break to Sokka and Toph and Suki all in those warship thingies. Zuko is egging Aang on, cheering for him, excited that Aang is facing off against Ozai and doing a great job at it. And then Sokka realizes these warships are going to burn everything, and now I have to do something. And you guys, I thought Sokka was gonna die. I didn't think they were gonna kill Toph, but I thought Suki and Sokka are fair game. They could die. I'm really glad they didn't. So Sokka turns his warship thingy and cuts across each and every one of them. Sokka and Suki get separated, and Sokka does the thing. All the warships go down. The place isn't burned to bits, but Sokka and Toph are hanging off the edge. I loved Sokka's sacrifices for Toph. I loved how in the midst of everything, he's grabbing a hold of her and making sure she's okay because she can't see up there. And I also love this growth from Sokka because we just in the last season saw him guarding Suki so tight that she couldn't move. And now he's letting Suki go and letting her do her own thing and trusting her to protect herself because he's focused on making sure Toph is okay because Toph can't see here and he has to watch out for her. I loved his care for her, and I loved that I wasn't beat over the head with it, and I could have even missed it if I wasn't paying attention. But every single scene in the air like this, he's grabbing Toph's hand, he's making sure she's okay. Even he could have let her drop in that final scene, and he could have potentially fought or saved himself. But no way, they were both going down because there's no way he's letting go of Toph. And the loving friendships, the loyalty in this show get me. Suki comes in with the warship thingy, and they drop down to Suki's ship, and no deaths. No deaths. I skipped Avatar Aang. Aang goes into full Avatar state and starts using all 4 elements at once, and that's how he's finally able to take down Ozai. Again, I loved the way he did it, where he trapped Ozai in the earth and then bound Ozai's hands and then pulled the earth down. I loved that scene. And this is when we finally find out how Aang gets around the fact that his conscience and what he needs to do aren't meshing. And what he does is he strips Ozai of his fire bending. So he doesn't have to kill him, but he no longer has power. And he isn't much of a threat anymore. And I loved it. It was the perfect solution for the dilemma that we had. I loved the way the show solved this problem. I loved that Aang didn't have to give up this essential part of who he was, but I also loved that they found a way to have true consequences for what Ozai did. And again, Ozai didn't get a redemption too, because why not? No, it was so much more real than that. Also, May. May is a character I was pretty worried about because I was afraid that she was going to also get a redemption just because I'm in love with Zuko, so I'm gonna do the right thing and join the right side. I hate that. Like, if you're gonna do a redemption arc, do it for better reasons than because I loved someone. And that's what happened with May. That's what May's arc was. She was fighting for the bad guys, but Zuko changed sides, so May changed sides because she's in love. And honestly, it didn't bother me like I thought it would, because I don't feel like May was ever all good or all bad, and I feel like she didn't end all good or all bad. She was kind of just May. She just existed, and she didn't really care what side she was on. She was just loyal to people. And that doesn't really give May a redemption arc. I don't think May got a redemption arc. I think she was just loyal to people, and she doesn't care what side she's on, which does not make her a good guy. But I don't know. Her arc wasn't really an arc, and for some reason, it didn't bother me like I thought it would. Anyway, the series ends with everybody together. Zuko serving everyone tea, which he's the Fire Lord. I loved that. Sokka's painting this great, terrible painting of everybody, and they're all together. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. Aang and Katara kiss in the end, and they decide, yeah, we're together, which I don't like them together, but I also don't care enough to complain about it. And then the show ended, which is frankly rude. I'm happy that this show didn't drag out and kill itself by going on longer than it needed to. The show had a story to tell, and it stopped talking when the story was over. And this is something very, very rare, and this is something that I respect so much, but also rude. I need more. I've already bought the first graphic novel manga. I don't actually know what it is, but I asked him what I need to buy, and he told me to start with The Journey. Is that the one I bought? He told me which one to start with. So I bought it last night, and I'm gonna start reading it as soon as it comes in the mail. And I'm really, really, really excited to continue following them in whatever medium I possibly can. And if it's a book, I'm thrilled. I think that having these series of stories in book format is the perfect apology that the writers could give me for ending my new favorite show. So I don't know if you guys are interested in videos as I read through those, but I'm going to read through them, and I'm really excited about that. I have been talking for a ridiculously long time, but I feel like I'm not done talking, so I don't know. I'm probably gonna keep talking about Avatar forever because I've never loved a show like I've loved this one. That's all I have for you. Be sure to continue chatting with me in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.